The Republic of Korea and the United States are stepping up pressure on Pyongyang. Seoul's foreign ministry says the two nations agreed to toughen measures against the DPRK. CCTV's Hahm is joining us from Seoul. Shane, an interesting phone call between the two envoys for sure.
You're right, Susan, and these two allies, the United States and South Korea, are always in close communication when it comes to dealing with the DPRK. But this phone call between the two defense ministers, or the Secretary of State and the foreign minister here in South Korea, in fact, agreed to work closely with the international community to make the DPRK realize that it has no choice but to denuclearize. And that really is the method in how South Korea approaches Pyongyang and its nuclear weapons programs. It wants to go through the international community. We saw the reaction to the DPRK's fourth nuclear test back in January, whereby we saw the United Nations come up with even tougher sanctions. And any other future nuclear test, there are signs that another one is imminent. If, in fact, another nuclear test were to be conducted by the DPRK, one U.S. official has noted that more sanctions could be in the works in the form of possible sanctions against foreign laborers for the DPRK, laborers that work overseas and bring in hard currency for the regime that could be funneled into the DPRK's weapons programs. But in terms of the international community, China always, of course, plays a big role. We saw that in the drafting of this most recent UN resolution. And with this Congress going on right now in Pyongyang, many media outlets here are noting that no foreign dignitaries have been invited to this Congress, which is in stark contrast to back in 1980 when dignitaries from numerous nations were invited. So this really is a Congress that is limited to the DPRK and its inner workings with the Workers' Party.
Shane, officials in Seoul were also looking for possible changes to Pyongyang's leadership structure during the Congress. Now the party Congress is bestowing its top title on Kim Jong-un. What is the reaction to the symbolic move?
Well, it shouldn't really come as a surprise to officials here. We've seen this sort of move from the DPRK's previous leadership with Kim Il-sung, the country's founder and grandfather of the current leader, as well as his father, Kim Jong-il, who went through these motions step by step until ultimately, and that's where we see the consolidation of his authority. And that's why many experts are saying this is a symbolic gesture with this party Congress this time around. But what officials here are really looking out for, in terms of officials here in South Korea, is any mention of inter-Korean relations, any hints of possible policies that we could see in the months and years to come. And Kim Jong-un did mention that the DPRK is looking for self-reliant unification without any help from outside forces on the Korean Peninsula. Also, efforts made to carry out bilateral dialogue with the South on various levels and issues. But at this point, South Korea isn't interested in dialogue. The government here has made it very clear it's focused on enforcing and carrying out sanctions through the international community at this point.
Well, Shane Hahm, we appreciate your time joining us live in Seoul.